fun little song playing. I've got my my fun little screen saver thingy. Also, I have my mug. I have hot tea because I'm pretty sick. So, all right, we're going to get started in just a second after we listen to the Fresh Prince for like 5 more seconds because I love this song. Open and don't try to fix it. All right, I want to apologize because I'm sick, but I'm very committed to doing this broadcast for you today. Week 3 of Storytelling Summer School. And today we're going to talk about storytelling challenges, which I love to talk about, actually. I love getting pushback. I love when people tell me they can't do things because I'm going to tell you why you can do things. So who gets an upper respiratory infection in the summer? This girl. But I have my tea. I have my water. I hopefully will be able to use my brain amongst all the ibuprofen and Mucinex and everything else that I'm taking. Hot tea does wonders, though. So I'm really hoping that you'll get a lot out of this today. If you do have other challenges that I'm not covering, then feel free to post them in the comments, of course, and then always in the Facebook group. I actually don't know how to get rid of the screen, but it's fine. I don't think it'll cover the slides. I just thought it would be kind of fun because it is summer, even though I've been in quarantine for a week with this stupid cough. Wash your hands, people. It's not just for winter. Okay, so let's get started. Storytelling Summer School, if you don't know what it is, if this is your first time watching me on a live video, just to recap really quickly, 6 weekly Facebook Live videos with actionable ways to use storytelling to raise awareness and funds for your nonprofit. And you get freebie downloads and checklists and planners and more each week. You also can participate in the private Facebook community of nonprofit marketers, which is really fantastic. And there's a lot of good topics going on in there right now. In fact, there's one thread around using the Facebook donate button. Should you use it? Because they don't give you any donor information. So, you know, what it's like versus ease of use for the donor versus your nonprofit doesn't really get a lot of information from the donor or from Facebook because it doesn't release the information. Anyway, lots of cool threads like that going on in the group. So upcoming lessons, we already did week 1, week 2. You can find those videos on my Facebook page in the videos tab. You can also find them on YouTube. This week, we're talking about the 6 challenges. Next week, we're going to talk about specific examples, things you can copy, things you can emulate in your next fundraising campaign, ways to use stories, and then how to fill in this digital storytelling calendar, and then battle-tested tools to rock your digital storytelling, which is probably one of my favorite ones, so I saved it until the end, so I'm really excited about that. It's brought to you by my book, my brand new book. Just click on the book when you get the slides. The slides will be up at my website. And they should be up right now. But, you know, technology. Let's see. So if you go to my website, you can get the slides. It should be up in a blog post. And then we'll have all the information that you need there. So, you know, you can always message me, comment. I'll put it in the comments too. Click on the book. It will take you right to the page to purchase it on Kindle. If you want Kindle or you want hard copy. Okay, I revised the story collection worksheet from week 1 with even more questions because I received some feedback that it would be helpful to have even more questions related to what we learned in week 2. So I took that feedback and I updated the story collection worksheet. You can get it and download it here. However, I did email it to you if you are on the Storytelling Summer School email list. And if you're not, just go to jcsocialmarketing.com/school. But if you are on the email list, you should have gotten it this morning. And I will be sending a Monday recap also with the download. You don't have to opt in again. You just can directly download it. So that's good. So let's dive right in. Let me get some of my tea. Okay. I actually had to give a webinar this week. I think it was Wednesday, I had a fever of like 103, and I don't even remember giving the webinar, and I like coughed the whole way through it. It was fine. I hope that the people on the webinar, they paid to be on it. I do them for charity how-to. I think that they were okay, but man, I don't even remember giving it. So let's talk challenges, right? They're rampant. Excuses for not doing storytelling, excuses for not being on social media. They are rampant. So by now in this process, in this social storytelling summer school, you should be excited and motivated to start getting these stories. I know some of you are. I know Amelia is. I know some of you have been emailing me. Some of you have been messaging me and even giving examples of your story collection worksheets. And I love it. So keep doing that. And that's great. But some of you still might be focused on these challenges. That's what we're going to talk about today. And even the most resourceful and creative marketer faces these challenges because unless you are the sole proprietor and founder and trustee, which is not ideal, and staff member for your organization, then you're going to run into one of these challenges, especially when you're working with a group of people, especially when you're working with an older organization, right? So we're going to address the 6 most common ones today. I love this cartoon. I think that it needs to be framed in every nonprofit office across the world. No thanks, we are too busy. Very, very typical. I'm sure you recognize that in some of the challenges that you're coming up against in your own work. Okay, key points for today. Last week we covered the 4 steps. Video is required, especially in 2017, even more so in 2018. Videos featuring authentic stories of real people. But remember, we covered the 5 stories. If you 100% could never possibly ever use a client that ever participated in your program, then you might need to look at the other 4 stories. They're not as compelling, but they still can be very effective and work very well, depending on your goals and depending on what you're trying to do. Then I think go back to week 1 where we talked about the 5 stories. Last week we did talk about the 4 steps required because it's more than just having a great story. You need to take these 4 steps to get people from passive to active. So authentic stories, most important. And that just works best online. It's just the nature of social media. It's the nature of email. It's the nature of websites. It's the nature of online communications. And I understand and recognize that some nonprofits face particular challenges. I mean, obviously they do. And I've told you this before. I worked for a domestic violence shelter as their development and marketing director. I've worked for a rape crisis center. I've worked for organizations where confidentiality is paramount. But we're going to talk about how to overcome some of those challenges. So the number 1 challenge I actually see, really even more than confidentiality, is fear of the unknown. We've never done this before, or fear of, doing something different and taking a risk. We've never done this before. I understand, right? Nonprofits, you like to keep your head down. You like to do the work. You don't really like to seek accolades. We often feel entitled to donations. We feel entitled to people's attention. I get this from clients pretty frequently. It's interesting because when I did work with small businesses about 7 years ago, when I first started, I started out doing social media management for small businesses and nonprofits. Now I work exclusively with nonprofits, but small businesses never really had that sense of entitlement. They never really said, oh, well, I've got this great product, so everyone's going to want to buy it. I mean, they thought that in their heads, but they understood the importance of really great marketing so that people would find out about their product. But nonprofits, because we do such amazing work, I mean, you do life-changing work every single day, you tend to sometimes think, well, people should just be loving us because of what we do. And that's a faulty way of thinking because you're just not, you have to earn it. You have to earn trust, you have to earn attention, and you have to earn donations especially, but you have to earn investment in your organization. Everyone's a media company. We're all media companies now. We need to be in a diverse number of channels. We need to be creating content. We need to be communicating with our audience. We are all media companies. And it depends on your goals completely. But if you're watching this video and if you're interested in digital storytelling, then you have a need to be communicating these stories with your audience. And we need to be communicating through a variety of channels. It is not impossible to change the culture of your nonprofit. It might seem impossible. If it is impossible, then talk to me and I will help you try to find another job. If you're at a nonprofit that absolutely 100% will never tell stories on any kind of online channel, then I don't know, there's going to be a wake-up call at some point. I've done a lot of work for universities, and universities tend to be very set in their ways. They tend to be, I've worked for a couple of state universities too. And the state universities never really had to fundraise before. Like they had capital campaigns if they wanted to build a new building, but they never really had to fundraise. So they fundraised with alumni a little bit, but they just never really had to do a concerted fundraising campaign. And then what happens when state budgets get slashed? What happens when funding goes away? What happens when foundations change priorities? All that kind of thing. So it's mandatory to change the culture. You want to have these stories. You want to be creating these connections with your supporters so you can call on them when you really need them. So the solution, if you've never done it before, collect and share lots of examples. I take screenshots every single day on my phone of organizations I follow on Instagram, on Facebook, of what they're doing, if it's really inspiring, and I'm constantly compiling them and keeping them for inspiration. So I think you need to be doing that too. You also maybe could get some professional training or get outside help if it's really serious, or you could just take a webinar, or you could watch a video, read a book. So get some help if you're finding it hard to convince the higher ups about the importance of it. Start every gathering with a story. So you could do it in the way that my daughter's school does it, where every day they start like with a gratitude story and every day someone else is assigned to it. Or you could just do it holistically and organically and invite people to share their stories as they come up. And then share stories in your internal communication. So you're creating that culture of storytelling where it's normal, it's accepted, it's encouraged, and it's empowering. So steal from the best. I have no idea if Picasso really said that. I couldn't verify it. So I didn't want to put the Picasso quote. So if Walter Isaacson is wrong, then blame him. I don't know if Picasso said it. It sounds good. Good artists copy, great artists steal. So clearly you don't want to steal images. You don't want to steal copy and language, but you can steal an idea from an organization that did a really great storytelling campaign. There's nothing that says you can't do that. Client confidentiality. This is something that affects probably every nonprofit organization unless you're dealing with animals, because we're all dealing with humans. And no matter if you're a historical society or a museum or a zoo, well, if you're a zoo, you're dealing with animals. But it doesn't depend, your cultural organization, whatever you do, you are dealing with humans on a daily basis in some way. So this is going to come up. So what I want you to do is I don't want you to let this challenge stop you before you even start, right? I really don't want you to just immediately, cross your arms and say, I can't do this. This is impossible for me. So that's why I talk about the 5 stories in the first video, because I just want to encourage you to kind of think outside the box. And I know, you know that I've been there. And I just want to say hi to Terry, who's in the comments. That's immediately also what popped up for me when I saw the caveman photo. Never done this before. Status quo. It's just so apropos to a lot of big organizations and small ones. And Martha says, Steal Like an Artist is one of my favorite books. It's also one of mine. I don't have it around me, but I read it a while ago, so I need to revisit it. It's really, really good, Steal Like an Artist. So this is kind of my advice just in life. Look at what you have and what you can use. Rather than starting from a place of no, start from a place of maybe. So be like an investigative journalist, be a detective. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't focus on what you don't have, right? So some solutions. You can shield personal details. There are a lot of organizations that do this very well. They change the names, they change identifying details, they change ages and that kind of thing. Use a creatively staged photo. I've seen this a lot. It's not ideal, but it does work for some organizations. The back of a head or a hand, like I've seen, people's hands clasped. I have seen some creatively staged photos, so it's not really showing the person and their identity. Stock photography has been used. I just encourage you to really use it thoughtfully and strategically. Don't use an image you've seen a million times and one that just really looks like stock photography. Also, a fun trick is to go into any kind of stock photography website and type in working mom. It's amazing what you'll find. It's always a mom who's like frenzied with a suitcase and like holding a baby. It's incredible. So that's what you don't want. You don't want incredibly stereotypical images or offensive images. And obviously you wouldn't use offensive images. Just saying, just be careful when using stock photography. Use canva.com. Okay, canva.com is a graphic design tool, but it's also a great source of stock photography. And each photo costs $1. At least I haven't seen anything that costs more than $1 on Canva. So if you're looking for great stock photography, go to Canva. You can pick out a format and you can put your photo. You can choose a photo. There's a search function. Canva.com is amazing. I know they offer wonderful discounts for nonprofits. I'm not sure if they offer discounts on stock photography. So that's something, if you do know if they do that, but I know they offer discounts on a lot of other features. They open up a lot of other features. You can also use WordSwag, which is a mobile app that's like $3.99 in the App Store. One of my clients, Center Street Food Pantry, they use this all the time. And you can upload your own photos and put text over it, or they have some stock photography that you can use. And Jim says the first few images on Canva cost $1, but many more are free. I think there's also a way to search for free images in Canva. I know a lot of the elements are free. I'm so sorry about that. I know a lot of the icons are free. So definitely something to explore there. And then if you get the slides, or if you just Google it, Beth Cantor's ultimate list of free or low-cost image collections. This includes every possible image collection you could ever get. And Martha, those are really great. I love that name, Death to the Stock Photo. That's amazing. I do believe Unsplash and Pexels are on Beth's list. But if not, you can request to add them, which I think would be a great addition. So all really, really great places to find photos. I think the key is just to not steal them. Don't steal them. Don't right-click and don't go to Google Images, because you'll run into so much trouble if you don't have the rights to it. This is Plumber Home, or they're now called Plumber Youth Promise. I've talked about them before. A foster home that houses boys 18 and under in the foster care system. They clearly cannot use images. They can use alumni stories, which they do a lot, actually, and they do that really, really well. And they do share stories in their email where they change identifying details, and that works really well. But this is clearly stock photography, and it works, it works for them. It works well. So just ways you could do it. This is One Can Help, onecanhelp.org. They are a tiny organization based in Newton, and they use animation on their website when they're doing their storytelling. So just another way to create some visual elements without sharing details. Okay, so I think we covered that. Terry says for disability topics, try photoability.net. which has authentic pics of people with disabilities. That's amazing. I wish that a lot of cause topics would do that. I think that's great. I'm definitely going to check that out. I didn't know that, so thanks, Terry. That would be amazing if a lot of different causes did that. I would love that, to have a whole big database so nonprofits could search by cause. That'd be amazing, or by topic. All right, so we're moving right along. Challenge number 3. My nonprofit is too new. My nonprofit is too small. So what I will say to you is that I think that small nonprofits and new nonprofits have an advantage. You have an incredibly motivated and passionate fan base. It might be small, but you started for a reason. And also you're new. Everyone loves things that are brand new, that they haven't heard of before. People just love that. People also really like small nonprofits because they feel like their money is actually going to the cause. You know, it's that whole overhead myth type of thing. So I wouldn't say use that to your advantage, because I hate the overhead myth, but I would say you're small, you're nimble, you're agile, you have close proximity to your clients, but you also have close proximity to your donors and supporters. You don't have a lot of bureaucracy. You're more nimble. You can make changes more easily. So just take advantage of all of these different things. Celebrate your differences from the big guys. Crow from the rooftops that you're not one of the big guys, that you're small, you're looking to grow and serve more people, but you are able to turn on a dime. More of your dollar goes to the client, however you want to phrase it, and make sure it's true. But just use the stories to your advantage. So you can start small, right? So you can use the founder's story. Maybe that's the only story that you have. You can also talk about, the new player in town story. Why did you start? What was the need? Were you started by a bunch of community volunteers? Were you started in response to a specific bill that was passed in your town? What really prompted you to start? You could share a story of your future plans. This is where we're going. This is what we want to achieve. This is where we see ourselves in 5 years. I think the biggest advantage you have if you're small or new is the authenticity factor and the rawness factor. And just the shiny new object syndrome. Like I said, people love things that are new. You can also get really personal if you're a small nonprofit, because like I said, you have less hoops to jump through. So I'm going to share some photos of my friend Brandon. This is a good friend of mine. He has an organization called AFAINT, and I'll type it up here, Artists for Advocacy International. And they raise money for various projects, but he recently went to Uganda. I'm talking like he just came back yesterday, I believe, from Uganda. And he was raising money for a medical health center through GoFundMe. He has a board of directors. He is a staff of 1. He's not even paid, so basically volunteer staff of 1. But his advantage is he uses Facebook in such a great way. He has these amazing photos that he takes, and he gets such fantastic response because it's so personal, because he's talking about something that's personal to him. So let's talk about a small new nonprofit raising money with storytelling. This is a fantastic video. All these kids got new shoes because of a fundraiser that he did, and just showing his donors, kind of where the money goes. I love this video. The most important picture of the trip, the place we're standing is the land he's given us to build the medical depot. And that's why he went there, and that's what he was doing. I promised him I would work tirelessly to see this project through. So he does. And this is in Uganda. And I know Godfrey Mugisha, we call him Mugi. He's not a professional photographer. These are all taken with a camera, a digital camera. So it's just a close friend of his. So using him as inspiration, as an example for storytelling, I really do think that AFAINT and Brandon do stellar work, and they did raise their goal. And they just did it through GoFundMe and Brandon's personal storytelling. Pretty amazing. Okay, challenge number 4. Our cause isn't sexy. Okay. So real talk for a sec. A lot of the work that you guys do in the sector is not sexy. It's thankless, controversial, and it just is not sexy. So we just need to get out of this framework that anytime we tell a story, it has to be sexy or appealing. I can't tell you the many times I've heard this, and I said, well, we do the hard work that no one else wants to do. We're not Nike or Apple. We don't have celebrities, crawling all over us. Maybe some charities do, but certainly not the small ones and not the ones that I work with. So just stop comparing yourself to others and do what you do best. Your cause resonates with your tribe. So find the people that are invested in your cause and communicate with them, and really don't worry about anyone else. And I always say this to people when they get all worried that people are going to unsubscribe from their emails. And I do worry about that too, of course, because your email list is just so important. Or they're going to unfollow you on Facebook, or they're going to unfollow you on Twitter. If they do that, they're not part of your tribe. They might come back into your tribe later. That's fine. But it's your job to be cultivating the people that want to be in your tribe, not convincing people that don't care to be in your tribe, because they'll never be those loyal supporters. So embrace your cause, embrace your tribe. Examine your advantages. I think that the advantages in niche causes is that the audience requires less information. So if you have a very rare disease that you're raising money for, the people that are going to support you know about the disease already, most likely. So you don't really need to do a lot of education. This is just in my limited experience with rare disease causes. Your supporters are going to be more vocal because they know they have to be. It's not a cause like climate change, which is a huge cause, or animal rights, or women's rights. If it's a very small and niche cause, I bet that your tribe is going to be very, very vocal about supporting you and why you're important. And of course, you could just make your cause sexy. There's a million ways you could do it. Think about Mad Men and advertising agencies, and just figure out a way to make it interesting. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Also, survey your supporters. That's important. Find out what they really think. Find out the top 5 reasons that they support you. Find out where they think you're going next. Find out what the biggest myths and misconceptions are in your niche. So just really understand your tribe. And I think that's true for all nonprofits, even with sexy causes. And then really work to activate the supporters that you have. So I love this. I read this article on Pew Internet about peer-to-peer healthcare organizations. And this was a mother whose child was diagnosed with an incredibly rare skin disorder. And she posted on the organization's Facebook page this quote: when a disease is so rare, there are no folks in your town, few in your state are going through what you're going through. You need a support group that encompasses people from all over the world. So the way she viewed this nonprofit was as a support group, like a lifeline for her, because it was such a rare cause that she couldn't access any resources in her state. So she had to do it all online. So think about the people like that you're helping, especially if it's a real niche cause. This is the SOHANA Research Fund. This is an incredibly rare disorder. And honestly, I love this challenge because I can't even say this. Epidermolysis bullosa. Epidermolysis bullosa. So they had an entire social media campaign called the EB Tongue Twister, where they asked people to try to say that 5 times fast. And they did actually get some celebrities involved, which is pretty amazing. And then they were asking for donations. That's in the UK. So talk about a cause that you've probably never heard of. And they made it, they kind of were laughing about it. They kind of made it, is that Benedict Cumberbatch? Oh my goodness. I don't know who that celebrity is. But they made it fun. They kind of were getting out of their comfort zone a little bit, making it less serious, and really reaching a wider swath of people. But of course, at the end of the day, your tribe is who matters most. But I just liked that idea for a campaign. EB, tongue twister. Yeah. Recessive dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. Yeah. Tongue twister. For sure. All right. We're moving right along here, which is great because I'm running out of tea. And that would be pretty bad for all of you listening to me cough for the rest of the time. This is a challenge that I encounter a lot. So what usually happens is that I go into meetings with 5 people, and then one of those people after the meeting will call me and say, hey, I don't want you to say anything, but my real issue is that so-and-so is not on Facebook, they're not on Twitter, they're not on Instagram, they don't trust any of it. They had a bad experience on it, and they just don't see the value of it for our organization. So there are ways that you can combat it. It is very common. You have to think about the breathtaking pace of change. So respect people's opinion and listen. Don't immediately get defensive. Don't immediately say, oh my God, but Julia said we have to share videos on social media, and oh my God, it's the only way to survive. Think that in your head, but when you're encountering a skeptic like this, you really want to be respectful of their opinion and listen, because they probably feel like they're a little bowled over because everybody is, using social media or using smartphones. People fear change. Think about how fast things are changing. It's crazy. I read an amazing article that I will share in the comments if I can think about it, talking about my generation. I think I am Gen X. I'm pretty sure I'm Gen X. 1977. So they were talking, it was about how Gen X and my generation is called the Oregon Trail generation. And if you ever played Oregon Trail, it was this amazing computer game that now would probably look like paper, rocks, scissors, but it was revolutionary. So we know, my generation knows a time when there was no internet, when there was no Facebook, when there were no smartphones. But we also are young enough to now be embracing all of that stuff, and we just know how to use it as part of our daily life. So I actually love being part of this generation because I totally remember life before Roku and Netflix and all of that stuff. And I am now thinking about ways that I can sort of unplug in my children's life, and that's the whole thing. But understand that some people, they haven't spent as much time in the second half of this era, the post-iPhone, the post-Facebook era. So it's not really post, it's during Facebook. So people are scared. And there's horror stories that abound. And Jim says, I have 2 boards stocked with members who don't use social media, won't even like or visit the Facebook pages. They probably think their identities are going to be stolen, and that's very, very common. It's a very common thought. So our job, I feel, is to educate people, not scare them, not overwhelm them. Don't ever assume that older generations are not using social media. So don't assume it. And also don't assume that younger generations are. I know a girl who's 32. She's only on Twitter. I don't even think she uses Twitter at all. She doesn't use anything. She text messages. It's unbelievable. I don't know how she does it. I'm kind of jealous. So don't ever assume that young people are comfortable with social media, and don't assume that older generations are uncomfortable. It's all on an individual circumstance, right? So the only way change is going to happen is by showing the data and showing results. And that's really the only way change is going to happen. So you want to develop an internal social media policy. If possible, this could be developed before you are even approaching people that might be skeptical. You need to answer the following questions. If you have a human resources person or someone responsible for like the employee handbook, this is the place to go to work it out with that person. But some questions to ask. What information should always be confidential and why? What do breaches of confidentiality online look like? Really explore this. What are the consequences of violating this policy? What behavior is encouraged? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then what behavior is discouraged? And I can't necessarily tell you what that's going to be like for your organization. So I wanted to include some resources with samples for you to explore. These are going to be available on my slide deck on my website. Idealware, Mashable, they have policy templates. They have a whole workbook to go through. Idealware is just an amazing website, by the way. Lots of templates, lots of things you can steal. Another solution, model appropriate behavior on social media yourself so you can show people. It's important to know there are no hard and fast lines between the professional and the personal anymore. I mean, there really are not. So you can start a fake Facebook profile and connect it to your page and do all this, so complicated, and do all this stuff. It's just not going to work. So we've all seen it from, tweets that were sent 10 years ago are coming back. So nothing is, first of all, ever deleted on the internet. Nothing ever goes away. But secondly, there really are no hard and fast lines. And you just have to know that. And then model appropriate behavior for other people. Hold as many trainings as you can. You might be the social media champion at your organization. Hold trainings if people are interested. And what I love, actually, I'm going to put it in the comments. I'm going to write it down. Road Scholar, ROAD, scholar.org. Their target audience is is pretty elderly, like 70 plus. I mean, that's not actually very elderly now, but they're older. So they went on Instagram. Road Scholar decided, as part of the marketing platforms that they wanted to explore, that they were going to go on Instagram. And they did a whole series of videos for their audience about, what is Instagram? Why did we decide to do it? How are we using it? How can you get set up on Instagram? Really awesome, because they didn't just send out an email, follow us on Instagram, because they knew that wouldn't work, but they are trying to reach younger people. So any way that you can encourage people and hold trainings and kind of hold their hand and walk them through things, the better. So I will find that link, and I just thought of it now. I wish I had taken a screenshot of it for you, because it's an awesome campaign that they did. Demonstrate productive uses of social media. Here is a great way that St. Baldrick's Foundation is using it in their annual campaign. Here is a great video that the Greater Boston Food Bank shared that I think we could do something like this very easily. Demonstrate the productive uses. Don't focus on the bad uses. And I'm going to use an example that I absolutely love to use. So this is a tweet. It's from 2011. I really couldn't find a more modern example of a nonprofit misusing social media. So this is one of their social media coordinators. She was using Hootsuite on her phone, and I guess she just sent this to the wrong Twitter account. It's totally fine. So this, I mean, it's not the worst tweet that could have been sent, but still, it's from the official American Red Cross account, millions of followers. So the Red Cross responded, we've deleted the rogue tweet, but rest assured the Red Cross is sober and we've confiscated the keys. You can imagine someone is like freaking out about this. But what happened was Dogfish Beer got wind of this and they decided to turn it into a positive thing. So after I drop off a pint of blend to the Red Cross, I'm replacing it with a pint of Dogfish Beer. It's amazing. Or make a donation. So every time this hashtag was used, Dogfish Beer made a donation to the American Red Cross. And it just got people thinking and talking, and it got a lot of publicity for Dogfish Beer that they didn't even anticipate, and a lot of publicity for the Red Cross. And of course they thanked them. You know, thanks for turning our Twitter mistake into a good thing. Thanks to Dogfish Beer for helping out. So I love that example, and I would show that. I don't know if I would show that to your supervisor, but just to say, there are ways around social media crises. Once again, I really don't know if Aristotle said this, but I love this quote. There's only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. I love that. You're never going to avoid criticism, ever. You could still get a nasty letter written about you in the paper, even if you're never on social media. So just food for thought. So we're going to go to our last challenge. Terry wrote, many people in organization use social media personally, but will not engage professionally. And I just wonder why that is. Are they doing something so sketchy on personal that they don't want people to see? Because, and also I think it's a misconception of the boundaries. So if I like something on your Facebook page, you can't see my profile. You can see my profile picture and my cover photo, but you can't see anything else. You can't see pictures of my kids unless we're friends on Facebook. So that's another important, maybe a very important point to bring up at meetings. Like, hey, everybody, just because, well, first, and also on Twitter, everything's public. Everyone can see everything unless you've created a private Twitter account. So just say, on Facebook and Instagram, if you like our stuff, we can't, no one can see your stuff back. It's not like you're friending us. You're just showing your support for the organization. Okay, clients do not want to share their stories. Never assume. Always be respectful. That's number one. The stories might be a way to heal. Approach it from that point. You clearly don't want to push anybody that doesn't want to tell their story. And then look at what's really going on. Because when I worked at the domestic violence shelter, I found that I had a really, really hard time collecting stories from clients or getting staff members to help me. And then I had to dig deeper to find out what was really going on. And what was really going on is that some of these staff members had their trust broken before by the previous development director. They felt exploited, used, and unappreciated by the previous development director, staff members too. Some clients were like, I don't want my experience with you guys to define me. I don't want that to be the only thing that people know about me. That's perfectly respectable. And then a lot of times they're just not sure how sharing their story will help others. So dig deeper, find the root of the cause. Don't just say, oh, they won't share, and then leave it alone. There might be other things going on that your organization needs to address. But if you cannot share past or present client stories, just review lesson 1, collect the other 4 stories and focus on those. Donor, volunteer, staff, community. Okay? This is a fantastic story that was on WBUR. And what I loved about this story is I was listening to it on WBUR. Several women who had been through Project Hope, which is what the story was about, called into the show and said they'd never publicly shared their story and they really wanted to share it because this Christina shared her story so publicly. It was so moving. So explaining the value of sharing your stories, it's not just for donations. It's so other people will come forward. It's especially if you're working with a population like this, you want to be breaking stigmas. You want to be breaking barriers and challenging stereotypes. So really explaining the value of the work in that way. So your homework, review the worksheet you filled out. So lesson 1, lesson 2, I combined them both into one worksheet, which you should have in your email. And then really look at the worksheets. Identify some areas where you might experience some challenges, and then really commit to enacting a solution to each challenge. Maybe just pick one. If you've got 10 challenges, that's going to seem insurmountable. So pick 1 or 2 challenges. Maybe you want to create your internal social media policy. Maybe you want to just hold a staff training on storytelling. Pick one solution from the solutions I shared today. Let us know in the Facebook group how you're overcoming your challenges. Because I guarantee you, if you're facing a challenge, other members of the group are facing that same challenge or have faced it and overcome it. So you want to make sure you're sharing in the group. The upcoming lessons, just to review that really quickly again, and I believe that's the end of the slides. So if there are no questions, I'm going to stop talking, take a little bit of a break. I can always answer questions afterwards. This was a really long one today. We certainly went through pretty thoroughly a lot of the challenges. So just make sure that you're not coming at it from a place of, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Read Shonda Rhimes' The Year of Yes. That book was amazing. Just read that book, and it will help you with changing your perspective on always wanting to say no. So thank you so much for joining me today. And next week, Friday at noon, hopefully I will be feeling and looking much better. But until then, make sure you pop in the Facebook group. Let us know what you're working on. Let us know your challenges and your successes. And have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Take care.